Credit unions as Christian missions. Credit unions are more connected with the community than most businesses. This is especially true when it comes to banking. Credit unions have a greater interest in the success of the local community than a national or international banks has. The success of a credit union is more dependent on the success of the community. People are not economic animals, we are human beings, and we are tribal. We want markets and free trade, but not at the expense of our community. The average guy does not want the economy to be focused on the needs of people who have never lived here and probably never will. We want the place where we live to be customized to local needs. This place is ours. We want our community to suit us. We want our community to be great and prosperous, but we are not willing to sell our future to the highest bidder. We want development, but on our terms. Label us, disparage us, berate us, but we will not let those who do not live here marginalize us. Towns want and need development. We want businesses to set up shop. Towns are full of people who work, vote, and volunteer, but we no longer see the success come from trying harder. Our towns have lost many businesses, and for us there is no lineup of developers waiting to invest. The truth is, things seem to get worse the longer we live. Our towns do not know how to create jobs, provide healthcare, or even how to get food to those who are hungry or housing for those who are homeless. We are a reasonably prosperous town in a prosperous nation, and we have poor people. It does not seem to be much to brag about, to say our people are housed and fed. But we cannot say this much. Our towns need volunteers to work at our hospitals, to clean our streams, and to deliver hot meals to shut-ins. Our towns need volunteers to step up and do volunteer work on top of the taxes they pay. We cannot even pay people for the work they do. How are we living a sustainable life if we cannot pay people for working? People who must choose between heating their home and feeding their children are poor in the worst kind of way. Every year it becomes harder to afford policing, education, and medical care. Every year food banks need more food to feed more families, and the toy drives find more children who will not have a Christmas without intervention by the community. Our towns need many things, but we cannot demand these things. Our towns are the country. There is no one to turn to. Economic demand requires money. Too many think it does not require their money. Economic demand also means the people with the most money impose their will on the market. Demand means cash or credit to pay for what you want, when you want it, and how you want it. Economic demand is measured in units of exchange. Economic demand is not created by crowds chanting pithy slogans. Economic demand is not registered when voters demand government provide handouts. This is true even if the benefit is comprehensive health care. Without an equal and opposite flow of compensation, money is just paper. No one can demand economic benefits nor goods and services, unless they can compensate the seller for his loss. We cannot demand an end to poverty, unless we have created the resources necessary to eliminate poverty. We cannot demand better roads unless we have a way to compensate the construction workers and their suppliers. In other words, only the buyer has a right to demand service from a seller. Everything else is terrorism. The desire to be a prosperous community must come to grips with the economic reality of what prosperity costs. If we want prosperity, we have to demand it, in the economic sense. We have to work and build what we, the community, wants. Nothing that is free adds to the prosperity of our town. In bygone days, a government that needed money would just print the amount needed. The state could buy whatever it wished with the printed currency. But the ability to pay for what one wishes with new money removes all limits from government spending. When the state has access to the printing press, the state is encouraged to engage in projects that consume huge amounts of resources, like wars. But the ability to print money has nothing to do with the nation's ability, or inability, to produce goods and services. This is true whether the goods and services are for peacetime or war. No amount of money will buy what does not exist. Nations do not have the productive capacity to produce all the stuff governments at war want to buy. When the state conscripts a tenth of the workforce to wage war, the production of goods and services decline. During a war, there is not much to buy other than soldiers and armaments. People may prefer to hang on to their hard goods, rather than sell them for a depreciating currency. The value of money declines because there is little to spend it on. Printing money allows the government to purchase what it wants. But this is only true if what it wants exists. Printing money does not provide a good way for us to get what we want if we no longer want the money because it no longer represents a store of value. Economic demand is a misleading idea. However, it is an idea banks have found useful. Money, as we normally think about it, has little or nothing to do with demand. Bank money or fiat currency has more to do with the demand for financial services and relatively little to do with economic development, or the production of goods and services. Ultimately, the economy or hard goods market is grounded in people exchanging what they need less for what they need more. This may be facilitated by the use of a currency, which can be a store of value or a medium of exchange, but when money ceases to be either, it becomes a liability and a hindrance to economic development. Money is, after all, simply a quantification of value. If we trusted one another in the way the Bible desires, money would be superfluous. If we trusted each other, accounts would not be kept, there would be no need for them. Money and accounting exist because dealing with each other involves risk, and risk is inherently a measure of how little faith we have in each other and ultimately, in God. Money enables us to sell what others wish to buy because we know at some later date, we can buy what we want, assuming we have a stable currency. A stable currency reduces risk for sellers when they lack faith in the integrity of others. When governments print money, the money they spend is not always transformed into things the rest of us want. Therefore, most nations now use the facilities of a central bank. A bank can theoretically lend out unlimited amounts of money. In theory, a bank could give everyone $1 million or more. All it requires is for a clerk to increase the balance of everyone's account. There would be no way to pay the money back, but we could live well by buying what we needed, only no one would be working. This might seem a ridiculous scenario, however, this is what happens when the state funds itself or a community. Where does this money come from, and is it ever paid back? The answer is less important as asking what is the value of this money based on. Regardless how foolish it might be to lend or gift billions to oneself, the process the state uses to fund itself is the same process used when we borrow money from the bank. We ask for money and the bank opens an account and credits the account with the amount it lends us. Where does this money come from? How is it that we are unable to buy food today but, with the bank's help, can buy a house tomorrow? If banks gave lenders as much money as lenders wanted, the economy would be destroyed by inflation. But if banks stopped lending money, the economy could not function. Most people do not really understand why, but they assume that a reasonable amount of lending is good and necessary. It is, if only to replace the money lost by people paying interest on the debt. It is true the economy needs money, but not true it needs the kinds of currency presently in use. It is also true that if the economy had no money, markets could not function. However, that is because the economy is designed to need banks and the state and their currency model. A market is economic activity. Barter is economic activity. The free market is barter using an infinitely divisible asset to facilitate exchanges, in effect, as a medium of exchange. Currency is an asset that can be infinitely multiplied or divided. Any asset that can be quantified as whole numbers and fractions can be used as a currency. This is why so many different things have been used as currency. Gold is preferred by many because it has intrinsic value and is divisible. The ability of a thing to represent whole numbers and fractions makes for a good currency or unit of exchange. It is not all that is needed in a monetary system. To understand money, we need to differentiate money and currency. Currency is an asset turned into money by fiat, that is by government decree. Gold becomes a currency when it is coined and declared legal tender. Paper is turned into a currency when it is printed and declared legal for the payment of taxes. Electronic accounts become money when the government permits the use of credit cards. However, if people do not feel safe using it as a store of value, it will not be a successful currency. Money is nothing more than quantified value. Currency exhibits the qualities of money and is therefore a type of money, but true money has no intrinsic value. Money is just numbers given form. Money is a way to track accounts. Money is a form of bookkeeping. Money only becomes a currency when we track accounts using something that is also tracked, i.e. an asset such as gold. With gold we do not just have currency, we have an appreciable asset. Gold is not currency until a way exists to quantify its value. Gold coins are an asset as well as a currency. If the denominational value does not symbolize the bullion value, then the currency reverts to its bullion state. Coins are hoarded when market value exceeds face